McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy. Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
really? She looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the character of Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And we are going to recap this year's Superman celebration in the home of Superman, Metropolis, Illinois. This is an event I go to every year to check out what's going on in Metropolis. And this year was actually the 46th annual Superman celebration.
Wow.
So it's been going on for 46 years. And it was held the weekend of June 7th through the 9th, 2024. And I personally was there on Saturday, June 8th. This time around, I just took a little day trip to Metropolis, just drove up, experienced some things, and drove back. I only had about 5 hours in Metropolis, so I was pretty busy. One of the things that is new in Metropolis this year is a new mural that Morgan Siebert is. She is the daughter of the Super Museum founder, and she actually runs the museum now. She is an artist and has been doing a lot of beautifying of Metropolis around the Superman Square, and she's been doing some murals. And so this new mural that she is doing is Action Comics #1. So that was one of the things I wanted to check out when I got to Metropolis for this year's Superman celebration, because it's brand new. It's it's an artistic rendering, a mural of Action Comics #1. Fairly close. I mean, they I think kind of visually nailed it in terms of the way that Action Comics #1 looks, in terms of, you know, having the June 1938 at the top and the #1 on the top left. So I think they did a really good job of making that iconic cover of Action Comics #1 created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. And Morgan, the other Morgan Siebert, said her goal was to restore a cherished piece of Metropolis, Illinois' local heritage. So she lives in Metropolis and really cares about the town, and so that is one of her goals. Her recreation not only pays tribute to her father's passion for Superman, but also revives a historic landmark for the community, celebrating the enduring legacy of the Man of Steel and Metropolis's unique connection to the iconic superhero. The new mural, if you're looking for it, is located on the side of the the Super Museum. So it's located on the side of the Super Museum, if I can say that correctly. So if you're looking at the Super Museum, it's on the left. So it's more kind of in between the Superman statue and the Super Museum. So if you're looking for it, that's where it is. I had to ask some police officers. I was like, do you know where that new mural is? I can't find it. So I did eventually get it. So that was one of the new things that was happening this year. Also, another new thing for me at Superman Celebration this year was Kryptonite Lemonade.
Ooh.
We here at Supergirl Radio, we're all familiar with the kryptonite that you can drink at Fat Ed's Roadhouse in Metropolis. But this year, while I dropped into Sissy's a Sweet Shop for my annual Superman ice cream cone, I noticed a sign that said, "Try our kryptonite lemonade." So, of course, I had to do so. And it was just lemonade, so it it wasn't anything super special, but you know, it tasted like lemonade, but it was a fun idea and it was good lemonade. I enjoyed drinking it, and I think that was a good way to get me to buy the lemonade, was to make it kryptonite lemonade, because I definitely wanted to try it. So now I have 2 kryptonite drinks that I can check out when I go to Metropolis, Illinois. So Sissy's a Sweet Shop is just down from the Superman statue. So if you want ice cream, cupcakes, cookies, and now kryptonite lemonade, that's a good place to go check out if you are in Metropolis for Superman celebration. And Morgan, as you know, every time I go to Metropolis, I have to go into the Super Museum.
Of course. I love your live reports from the Super Museum. I always usually get like a little hint of what you're gonna find in there because you'll message me and like the weirdest thing I've ever seen and be like, what is this? And you're like, I don't know. So I'm always excited to see what new and exciting treasures you found in the Super Museum this time around.
I always find something new, and I always want to bring some knowledge that I've investigated and found out about these things. So I always like to go to the Super Museum because even though I go every year and a lot of it's very familiar, there's always something that I haven't seen before. Sometimes they'll put out new things. So I tried to put together a list of things according to chronological order. I thought that was kind of interesting to watch the progression of Superman memorabilia through the years. The first thing I wanted to talk about were the picture puzzles from 1940. So the Super Museum had some what they called picture puzzles, and these are from 1940. Which, if you put that in the context of Superman's creation, this is 2 years after his debut in Action Comics #1. So even within 2 years, they were making Superman merchandise for kids to pick up and buy. So they were already trying to find ways to monetize Superman aside from the comic books. It's worth noting that in 2016, one of these puzzles sold at an auction for $1,265. So a pretty expensive puzzle, picture puzzle there. And what I think is interesting about this, especially if you look at this visually, if you're watching on video, or if you look at the link that we'll put in the audio podcast show notes, what I think is interesting when I was looking through these, and I wanted to get other people's input on it because I kind of want to do some research on this. But if you look at the picture puzzle box, and then if you look at the next item that we're going to talk about, which is the Superman wristwatch, the Superman branding changed from 1940 to about 1948. So if you look at the Superman logo, the way that the font is written out,
weird.
It's a little bit different. So I would love to do more research into like when did they decide on the final font for Superman? I don't know, but it was settled, I think, pretty early on within about the first decade of his existence. So from a branding perspective, I think that's really interesting. So those picture puzzles, very old, and can sometimes sell for quite a bit in auctions. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, here's the wristwatch from 1948. I couldn't find out a lot of information about this watch, but the year did make me wonder if it was timed, no pun intended, to coincide with the release of the 1948 Superman movie starring Kirk Allen. So I don't know if this was in coordination with the movie's release, but 1948 had a Superman movie coming out, and there was also a 1948 Superman wristwatch. So lots of Superman wristwatches over the years, and this one was from 1948. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it definitely has a little bit of a different Superman branding in there. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. The next thing I wanted to bring up was also from the 1940s. This is the Comic Stars trading cards, or comic traders, from 1949. And when I did some research on this, according to CandorArchives.com, which is a great website, by the way, that I've discovered, Comic Stars trading cards, or comic traders, received 4 series of printings. So these are fairly old trading cards. The perforated cards feature popular characters from newspaper comic strips. The cards are approximately 2.25 inches, I think, by 3.5 inches, more narrow than a standard trading card. This set is unnumbered, and the back of each card is blank. Some card backs are stamped with various store advertisements. Cards were originally sold in packs of 12, sealed in cellophane. Each cellophane pack includes a header, a placard, and 5 duplicates to be traded. The later printings are packaged inside of die-cut cardboard sleeves. Superman appears on 2 different cards in this series, and both images were illustrated by the comic book legend Wayne boring. So I think it's pretty cool that trading cards were there pretty early on, and not only is Superman featured on there, but Superman and Lois are both featured on these trading cards. So
That's
I thought
so
that was
cool.
pretty cool. So I love all this stuff from the 1940s. Continuing on the 1940s, I have one more item in this decade. This I thought was pretty cool. I guess maybe I don't know if I knew about these before I saw it in the Super Museum, but they have a couple of these things called dime register bank tins, and these are from the 1940s. I don't know exactly what year, but these are Superman Daily dime banks measuring 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, and features a classic image of Superman breaking chains and a wood grain design with a sliding trap door on the reverse side of it. The Man of Steel, though, is not the only character with his own dime register bank 10. Other characters include Prince Valiant, Davy Crockett, and Little Orphan Annie. And these various dime banks, these dime register bank 10s, would range in time sometime between the 1930s and the 1950s. So that's when you would have seen these being sold. But I was not really aware of the dime banks, because I always think of piggy banks. But I think the premise of these is that you would put your dime in the top of the dime bank, and then when your dime would go in, there's a counter on the front of the dime register bank telling you how much money you have. And then it says on the back, it says at $5, move lever to the right. So I don't know if that moves it so that all of your dimes come out. I don't really know, but it would collect, I guess, up to $5 in dimes in these little dime register banks. My uncle told me he actually had one of these. I don't know if he had a Superman one, but he definitely had a dime bank. So I don't know if people are still making dime banks today, but I'm sure I have a lot of dimes that could go into a dime bank somewhere. So that was kind of cool. What I like about learning about these Superman things is that I learn a little bit about history and knowing how people used to use things.
That's very cool. They're like very cool looking too. I really like the design of the dime banks.
Yeah, very colorful with the primary colors, and I think I like the Superman one better than some of the other ones. The Superman one is definitely more dynamic, in my opinion, but I could be biased. All right, well, we're gonna leave the 1940s now and go into the 1950s.
Oh, muscle building.
Yes, if you are a young, maybe young boy, but maybe some of the young girls too. If you are a young one, when Superman was popular in the 1950s, because in the 1950s, that was when George Reeves and the Adventures of Superman TV show was on the air, and Superman was a big deal for kids back then. Especially on television. So kids probably wanted to build some muscles like Superman that they were watching on television. So this muscle building set was from 1954. And this set features an illustration of Superman with two boys using exercise equipment, one wearing a belt with an S logo buckle. The lid interior has a 7-panel story of Superman showing a boy how to use the set. And this set allowed kids to track their gains by using the Superman muscle building chart. And I'm trying to see if I can pull that up as well. That chart has columns for date, height, weight, arm muscle, chest, and waist. So they were really having you chart your progress. The set also includes an illustrated Superman muscle building club certificate and a pin back button. One of these Superman muscle building sets sold at an auction for $1,140.25. On eBay, this muscle building set is selling currently for just under $2,000, $1,999.99. So just under $2,000. So if you want to bulk up with Superman with this muscle building set now, you need about $2,000.
Wow, this is a pretty expensive muscle set, huh? You had to really pay to get those like clothespins
and your your club certificate.
Measuring tape.
So that muscle building set, while popular in the 1950s and probably much cheaper then, it is much more expensive now. But hopefully some kids back then really got to build some muscles with that set. Well, something that caught my eye in the Super Museum was a case full of horseshoe games and a Superman snorkel. So I wanted to look those up. So the first thing we'll talk about is the horseshoe set. So the Superman horseshoe set is from the 1950s. Don't have a specific date, just 1950s. One of the cabinets in the Superman Museum had some game sets that featured this horseshoe set. And one of them was a horseshoe set which would have contained an 8-piece rubber horseshoe set, a rule sheet, 4 horseshoes, and 2 bases. So real colorful box, like blues and reds. I don't know if some of this would have been yellow or if it was just white. So it was just a lot of reds and blues. And
Horseshoes.
and so horseshoes, I guess, was a big game in the 1950s. I'd have to do some digging on when the game of horseshoes was invented. But I like that it says on the bottom, it says super quality, flexible rubber and harmless to floors or furniture.
Harmless to floors or furniture. Yeah, instead of those like big heavy metal ones.
Yeah, rubber
throwing around
probably.
your house.
Yeah, that would be better to play indoors.
I like how it's like a harmless to floors or furniture, not like harmless to your children.
People were much more concerned about their floors and their furniture. But this is what the actual horseshoes would have looked like. So the horseshoe sets even came in Superman branding if you were a big fan of horseshoes. Now, the super snorkel that I wanted to look up is also from the 1950s. And this set was part of an extensive line of Superman swimming gear produced at the time that included goggles, fins, and snorkels. The box would have included a Superman Safety Swim Club membership card and club safety rules. So if you were going to get the snorkel mask and the muscle building set, you were going to be all in the Superman clubs. You would have certificates and everything. So yeah, if you were gonna snorkel with your Superman snorkel, you had to be part of the Safety Swim Club. And the card actually says this is to certify that the undersigned is an official member of the Superman Safety Swim Club and agrees to observe the swimming rules listed on this card. So I appreciate that they were going for safety and making sure kids were swimming properly if they were going to be swimming with their Superman snorkel. Some more Superman puzzles were in the Super Museum that I spotted. This time around, we're going to be talking about the Superman sliding puzzle from the 1960s. So we've jumped
those
up.
sliding puzzle games are so like they drive me crazy. I'm so bad at them.
They can be fun, but also time consuming. You have to be really dedicated to do it. And timing will actually play a part in this Superman sliding puzzle information. Because even though I couldn't get any information on this item, the game itself encourages you to, quote, give yourself the Superman time test, unquote. If you solve the slide puzzle in 10 minutes, you're Superman. If you solve it in 20 minutes, you're just considered brilliant. And if you solve this Superman slide puzzle in 30 minutes, you're only human. So you really need to aspire to be somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes because they make 30 minutes seem slow because you're only human. But I think it's cool that these puzzles, they had the kind of traditional sort of jigsaw puzzle, but they also had this sliding squares puzzle game that they were making with Superman things. And if you're curious about the history of the slide puzzle, like I was, the oldest type of slide puzzle is called the 15 puzzle, which is named for having 15 square tiles, and it was invented by Noyes Chapman in 1880. Chapman's invention initiated puzzle craze in the early 1880s, and from the 1950s through the 1980s, sliding puzzles employing letters to form words were very popular. So in the 1960s, these sliding puzzle games would have been popular for the time. So Superman definitely capitalized on that. Another thing that I spotted in the museum, I was actually trying to figure out what the thing that said magical television on it was, but behind that,
Magical.
I couldn't find any information on that. I couldn't figure out what it was. Was it an 8-track tape? I don't know. But in that same area, there was also something that said sweet cigarettes on it. So I went to go look that up to try to find information about that. And according to CandorArchives.com, Superman's sweet cigarettes were distributed. Distributed. Distributed.
Distribute it.
Why
Yeah.
did that look weird when I read it? Distributed in the UK and Canada by Primrose Confectionery, a company limited of Slough, England. Maybe is that how you
I'm not
pronounce?
quite sure.
I don't know how you pronounce that, but it's distributed through this company in England. Each box included a mini Superman card that measures approximately 2.5 inches by 1.35 inches. The 50 card series is copyrighted 1967 by National Periodical Publicity Incorporated, a typo for National Periodical Publications, which is what DC Comics used to be known as. The candy boxes are copyrighted in 1966. The storyline on the back of each card features Lex Luthor and Brainiac as the protagonists. The artist and writer for this set are not credited, unfortunately. In 1979, in an effort to phase out candy cigarettes, Superman sweet cigarettes were rebranded as candy sticks. So they tried to sort of, I hate to say, sugarcoat some things. But they did have these candy cigarettes at one point, and then they became candy sticks because
And they're like, "Oh, cigarettes are bad for you? Should we not be giving a candy version to children?"
So if you were wondering if there were ever any candy cigarettes with Superman on them, there
Guess what?
definitely were. So those were the Superman sweet cigarettes that I noticed around this time in the Super Museum. Also in the vein of pumping iron with Superman, in the 1970s, in 1977, they released Superman power grips. So back in the day, I don't know if they still encourage you to do this now, but it seemed like back in the day, there was a big effort to build your hand muscles. So like you could use these grippy things to build up your strength within your hand. I don't know why that was such a big trend. I don't know that I see people do that today.
No.
But there were Superman power grips. There were also, it looks like Batman had a power grip. I want to say there was also a Wonder Woman component, but she's not on the box. But these power grips were to, I guess, help you build your hand muscles. So that was something that they were selling in 1977. Something that caught my eye in the museum, but I didn't actually get to listen to it until I got home, was the Superman and Other Disco Hits.
Ooh, this one was groovy.
Which was from 1979. So this would have been at the height of disco when this was released. And in the Super Museum, it's kind of packaged with something on top of it, so you can't really see what it was. But I took a picture of it, and because I could see it said Disco Hits on there, and I was like, "What is this?" And so I actually found it on YouTube. And I could not find anything else that this band had done. It's by the Dr. X Band. The album is called Superman and Other Disco Hits. But I couldn't find anything out about this band. I don't know anything else that this band has done. But there is an album of disco hits that features not only the Superman score from the Christopher Reeve movies, the John Williams Superman score. It also has Star Wars disco. It has the disco version of the Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie theme. And it also has 2001: A Space Odyssey. So if you ever wanted to listen to those things in disco format, this is the thing.
Listen, some of the jams on there, pretty good. I think you found one of the tracks on YouTube, and I listened to it, and I was like, all right.
It's surprisingly great.
It's pretty good.
If you're okay with disco music, and I kind of am, it's kind of awesome. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was pretty great.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. So, yeah, Superman was on the disco trend there in the late 1970s. Okay, so one of the things that caught my eye this time around that I never really paid attention to were these two statue looking things. One was an elephant with an R in a like a Superman glyph kind of shape with a holding up like a globe or a world. And then there was a donkey that had a similar sort of Superman glyph with a D on it, with a globe holding a globe on top of its back or head. And obviously it looked like Republicans and Democrats from American politics.
So
But
weird.
but I didn't know what the contexts were for these. And turns out these are what they're called decanters, I guess.
Oh,
I don't know if you know anything about decanters. I don't. But they were made by the Jim Beam Bourbon Whiskey Company during the time of the 1980 presidential election. If you were like me and you don't know what a decanter is, some whiskey enthusiasts believe that exposing the whiskey to air through decanting, they can enhance its flavors and aromas. This process, known as aeration, I think is what it's called, allows the
Ah.
whiskey to breathe and potentially evolve in taste.
interesting.
For whatever reason, they made these Republican and
Weird,
Democrat
man.
decanters look like Superman. So very strange stuff.
Very, very strange. God bless the Super Museum.
And it's there, of course, with no real context, but
No.
it's interesting to look it up. Morgan, can you read about the 50th
Sure.
birthday coin for me?
Yeah. So this Superman 50th birthday bronze coin medallion for Superman's 50th birthday celebration, which was on February 29th, 1988, fans could buy a silver coin that reads "Truth, Justice, and the American Way" on the head side of the coin, and created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster on the other side of the coin. So you could buy a commemorative coin for his 50th birthday, which is really nice. Get Superman something a little special.
It's crazy to think that his 100th birthday is not that far away. It would be in 2038.
Oh my God, that is very crazy to think about.
So this is the 50th birthday here, but it's coming up on 100 for old
It's coming.
old Blue Boy Scout. So the next item that I noticed in the Super Museum, and I've seen this
That's
before
cool.
when I've gone, I've like seen this thing 1,000 times. And I finally looked it up to figure out what it was. And this is called the Superman Nostalgic Radio from 1998. It usually sits in the Super Museum. It's usually located in the George Reeves section. But it turns out it has nothing to do with George Reeves or the Adventures of Superman TV series. It's just a collector's radio with a Superman design on it. So it's a pretty neat radio. So I guess they put it there because in the 1950s, a radio like this might have been pretty popular. So it doesn't have anything to do with George Reeves, but it is there in the Superman section, in the George Reeves section. There is an item that I thought was adorable that I took a picture of, which is I think a Superman lighter of some kind, but I could not find any information about this thing. And I actually emailed the Super Museum to ask them about it. And all they could tell me was that it was an unlicensed product and that they believed it was made in Taiwan. You can kind of tell it's unlicensed because the Superman S there is not quite. Not great.
Yeah, he's a little off.
He is not great there. And Morgan, would you read about the George Reeves advertisement?
Sure. So this is an advertisement for George Reeves' appearance at the Moulin Rouge Oh, ho, ho, ho. We're not sure what year this event took place in, but on November 21st at 5 p.m., children under 12 years old could pay $1.50 and adults could pay $5.50 plus tax for dinner and a show to see George Reeves in person at the Moulin Rouge. This is not the Moulin Rouge in Paris, which is a little bit less exciting, but rather that's where I thought this was going. But rather a nightclub in Los Angeles, California in the 1950s. The Moulin Rouge was opened in 1953 by a man named Frank Sinnes Sr., who was a well-known entertainment figure whose lavish production shows entertained millions. At the time, the Moulin Rouge was the biggest nightclub, restaurant, and showroom in America. It was actually nicknamed the showplace of the world. Unfortunately, the Moulin Rouge was shut down in 1960, but at some point in time before that, George Reeves made an appearance there. Again, not sure the year, but probably before 1960.
Yeah, apparently big Hollywood stars would go to this Moulin Rouge club. And it's cool that George Reeves was a big deal to go see. And the ad even says, bring the kiddies, talking about bringing the kids. And it says you've seen him on television on KTTV, I guess the local news station or the local channel there that probably would have aired Adventures of Superman. It says, now see him in person. So that's pretty cool that he achieved that kind of star status there at that nightclub. And in addition to George Reeves, I took a little more time in the George Reeves section because I don't, other than him being Superman and his mysterious death, which we're pretty sure that we have solved because his girlfriend
obviously
definitely shot him.
His ghost told us, don't worry about it.
Well, his ghost told us. So Jim Hambrick told us that his girlfriend shot him, but his ghost said that Eddie Mannix had him killed.
Oh, twist.
His girlfriend that he was having the affair with, his other girlfriend, his the woman he was having the affair with, her husband supposedly had him murdered. So we're getting conflicting reports on what
if the ghost could be a little bit more clear, that would be great.
So since I don't know a ton about George Reeves other than his mysterious death and playing Superman, I've been trying to learn more about him. And what's interesting is that in the Super Museum, there is a citation for meritorious service from 1943 for him. And this got me curious about how he was connected to the American military. This citation for meritorious service from 1943 was specifically for his contribution to the National War Fund campaign. According to military-history.fandom.com, even the military has a fandom.com. Reeves was drafted into the U.S. Army in early 1943. 1943 is when he was drafted into the Army. He was assigned to the U.S. Army Air Forces and performed in the USAAF's Broadway show Winged Victory. The long Broadway run was followed by a national tour and a movie version that would come out. Reeves was then transferred to the Army Air Force's first motion picture unit, where he made training films. The first motion picture unit was the primary film production unit during World War II and was the first military unit made up entirely of professionals from the film industry. It produced more than 400 propaganda and training films, which were notable for being informative as well as entertaining. George Reeves served in the military from 1943 until 1946 and had the rank of sergeant. When he was discharged at the war's end, Reeves returned to Hollywood. So I actually had no idea that he was in the military, that he had served in the armed forces. So that was something that I learned. And one of the other people who served alongside him in this first motion picture unit was Ronald Reagan. So this was a cool thing to learn. I had known previously that during World War II that some directors and Hollywood people had been recruited to make films like this, but I did not know that George Reeves was part of it.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
That is pretty cool to know that bit of his life history and how that connects to his early days in the film industry and Hollywood. So definitely wanting to learn even more about George Reeves in his early days, because that was quite interesting to me. Well, when I was in Metropolis, in addition to going to the Super Museum, I try to find people I haven't spoken to yet in terms of meeting new people. I ran into the St. Louis Supergirl, Marin, and I didn't interview her this year because I was like, I've put a camera in your face too many times. And so I let her go along and enjoy her celebration without making her talk to me. But I did get to see her. She was there as Supergirl. And
Nice.
it was actually very pleasant at Metropolis. Usually I'm a sweaty mess at Metropolis. But it was very cool and very, very nice. And so I think everybody, especially in costume, was appreciating the temperature. So one of the cosplayers that I see every year at Superman Celebration is a guy who dresses up as Superman. And so I tried to stop him for a few minutes to ask questions, ask some questions. I don't want to take a lot of time with these people because they're out in the Superman area, the Superman Square street, the main street there. And so they often get asked for pictures. So I couldn't spend a ton of time with him. But I asked him if I could have his real name or if he preferred for me to call him Superman. And because there were kids around, he opted for me to call him Superman.
Nice.
So as to maintain his secret identity. So,
Makes sense.
So when I talked to him, one of the things that I wanted to ask him about was how he started coming to Superman Celebration.
I started coming at first as just a participant out of costume or out of my suit. And about 9 years ago, I've been coming here longer than that, but about 9 years ago is when I started wearing the suit to the Superman Celebration.
Yeah, so he's a pretty popular Superman in addition to the official Metropolis Superman. He is a Superman you're going to see in Metropolis when you go to Celebration. And I was curious. I also asked him about his suit because I'm always curious how people make these suits. And he had a pretty perfect Clark Kent answer for this.
A lot of trial and error. Or as I like always telling people, my mother made it for me.
So
good one.
So it's a good way to answer that question. And since this Superman has been attending Superman Celebration for a while, I asked him about why he likes coming to this event.
It's become a family event. After being here for so long, a lot of the cosplayers and a lot of the people that come in, it's become the extended family. So I bring my family along, and it becomes like I said, a family reunion and a family outing.
I hear that a lot when I talk to these people who come to Superman Celebration. So that's something that we might hear later on from another set of cosplayers that I will be talking to. So very common answer. Superman also told me that he was part of another event called Heroes for Kids Comic-Con in Perryville, Missouri. So this is him talking about that event and what you can expect if you want to go and check it out.
It's Heroes for Kids, Perryville, Mo. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and we're on YouTube as well. We also host a Comic-Con. It's about an hour from this area. It is Heroes for Kids Comic-Con. It's in July 20th and 21st. It's very inexpensive for the family, and 100% of the proceeds goes to charity.
Thank you for your time, Superman. I'll see you around. So I'll probably see Superman next time I go. He's one of the regulars that I see there in Superman Celebration. So if you're ever in Metropolis during that time, make sure you tell him hello. And if you are in the Missouri area, definitely go check out Heroes for Kids Comic-Con. Well, another set of cosplayers that I got a chance to talk to very briefly because it's a group of cosplayers I see every year when I go. And they're very popular. They get stopped for pictures all the time. And so I knew I only had maybe 2 minutes to talk to them. And so this is basically the Justice League that I got to talk to. There's a Batman, there's 2 Supermen, a Deathstroke, a Supergirl, a Lex Luthor, and a Wonder Woman. So I was able to catch them just for a few minutes. It took me longer to set up my stuff than to actually ask them questions, but I didn't want to take them away from getting their pictures made with people. So I definitely had to be very brief about it, but I did get to ask Batman and Superman some questions, including getting Batman's take on the Superman celebration, because why do we celebrate Superman and not Batman? So this was his answer to that question.
My name is Adam Prince, or as you know, as Batman. You can find me on Knoxville's Dark Knight on Instagram or on Facebook.
My name is Taylor, and I go by SuperTot97 on Instagram. I'm also from Knoxville.
I'm John. I don't have any social.
He's not very social.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm Supergirl. I don't have social, but we are from Northern Kentucky.
I'm Corey.
In character.
And this is my wife, and we are happy to be a part of this group.
Hello, my name is Shannon. I am married to Batman over there. You can follow me on Instagram at WonderCat2015.
Hey, what's up? I'm Brad. My social is RockyF150. Absolutely love the celebration.
I do want to get your take, Batman, on why there is not a Batman celebration. We come here every year to celebrate Superman. What's that about?
Well, today would be a great day because, the lighting is perfect for me. Superman has just more of that Boy Scout true feeling of what America is and truth, justice, and all that. And it's just like, it doesn't seem like that would go very well with Batman, because you're going to do that. You might as well be at a funeral home, I think, because he's always just dark and broody, and he never has a very positive outlook on everybody. But that's why you've got Superman and all the others. He bounces off of them, and because of them, that's what keeps him going, I think, is because he needs that positive reinforcement in his life. That's why he has Robins. I don't know. I don't think it would go very well if you had a Batman celebration. It just don't seem like it would be the same uplifting thing as it is Superman, because Superman stands for a whole different cause. So I think that's why Superman does a lot better in a celebration than a Batman one. Well, if it was Batman's celebration, my parents would never be there, Oh, God, Martha. Martha. Sorry, I had a flashback moment.
Yeah, they were really fun, and I think he's a little hard on himself. He's a little hard on Batman.
I think so too. I think Batman, it's okay. Like, you're fun too.
But yeah, so we talked about Batman celebration, and then I got to ask one of the Supermen about why he likes coming to the Superman celebration.
Most of all, the family atmosphere. Been coming for quite a while, and it's people like this that keeps me coming back. The staff here is incredible. They always do their best to make this one of the best times, and it's just family. It truly is a family atmosphere, and when you start knowing people like this, you just want to come back.
Yeah, I get that. I've been going, I think this is my fifth year now, so I'm starting to recognize people. I see people, I meet people. So I think that's a very common thing that people talk about it as a Superman celebration, as a family-like atmosphere where they get to know people like that. So that's pretty cool. One of the other things that was going on, actually, and it looks like Bunsen joined us.
Bunsen decided to join. He's like, I want to know what's going on. I want to see the celebrities.
Yeah, so in addition to the cosplayers that I see every year, there are celebrity guests that are there, and sometimes they have Q&A panels. So I went to two on Saturday, and the first one that we'll talk about is the Elizabeth Tulloch Q&A. She plays Lois Lane on Superman and Lois, and also in the Arrowverse when they decide they want to be part of the Arrowverse. And so I actually learned a lot about Elizabeth Tulloch, or Bitsy, as she is sometimes called. And in the Q&A, I actually learned why her nickname is Bitsy. I did not know that before this Q&A panel. So her origin story is pretty great and better than I can imagine. So if you wondered why Elizabeth Tulloch is called Bitsy, this is why.
Thank you for your service. What Army, Navy, what? Air Force. So thank you for your service. Speaking of the Air Force, so not everyone knows this. My legal name's Elizabeth, which was my grandma, Betty's legal name. My nickname's Bitsy, but my grandfather, Walter Scott Tulloch, was a bomber pilot in World War II, the Korean War, the Cold War, and Vietnam. And his childhood nickname was Bitsy, and he kept it as his call sign, like Maverick or Goose. And when I was born, people just started calling me Bitsy too, so we were both Bitsy, but he was in the Air Force his entire career.
Oh, that's so cool.
I didn't know that's why they call her Bitsy, but it is. So that's pretty cool that it came from her family. Elizabeth also talked about how she auditioned for Lois Lane and how she wanted to honor the character. So if you've never heard that story before, I will let her tell it.
I had seen the original Superman, the Richard Donner with Margot Kidder, because we as a child. And then I get this audition. It was funny because my whole life, people had said, "You look kind of like Margot Kidder, Lois Lane from." I've been getting that my entire life, and then this audition. What? Oh no, she's beautiful. And I thought, oh, that's so weird. I've had so many people tell me I kind of look like Margot Kidder, and I decided not to ever watch anyone else's performance because when I went in, I booked it, and it was this audition, and it was a cut scene from I Want to See Superman 2, and I didn't watch it or anything, and I just thought, it's either going to be what I'm bringing to the room or it's going to be someone else. And when I did it, everyone started clapping. And I think the reason, because they were auditioning a lot of women for the role, I think the reason I got it is that I had a lot of fun with it. And it was a very serious scene on paper, and I was just kind of having fun. And, being, Lois is kind of sassy and she's bold, and that's kind of how I played it. And then, but the weird thing is, because Tyler and I have such great on-screen chemistry, we had not screen tested together or chemistry read or anything. The first time I met him was the day we first played Superman or Clark Kent and Lois Lane on Flash in the 2018 Elseworlds crossover. And I remember when I was 6 months pregnant, and I'm on my way to set, and I was just like, oh, I really hope this guy's not a douchebag. Because I got to work with him, and he was so great, and it's just like we were so dropped in immediately into those characters, and I think we both felt so grateful. As far as playing such an iconic character, it's mainly just cool. I never really found it intimidating. As many of you know, if you follow me on social media, I have a lot of respect for the character. I've always tried to ask the costume designer to, even though I don't love purple, it's Lois's color, so I always say I want to wear purple. What kind of earrings does she wear in the comics? She wears little white, diamond studs or pearl studs, so I almost always only wear studs on the show. Whenever we've had flashback episodes, I'll go through the comics and pull outfits that I'm like, oh, can we do something like this? Can we do something like this? Last season, there was a scene where I had a fedora on, and that was because someone had sent me, because I asked on social media, like, what are some of the Lois outfits you guys want to see her in? And so, because it was a flashback with Lex, we were able to kind of do that, and she's got the fedora on and the journalism stuff. So I've just tried to basically honor what has made her so iconic, because they were both introduced in 1938, and she's remained as iconic as he has, as a symbol of, feminism, but also just she's ambitious and she's driven, and her work ethic and her pursuit of truth, and those are the kinds of qualities that I've tried to honor in the character.
It's crazy to me that they did not chemistry read Tyler and Elizabeth together. I thought for sure
insane.
They would have done that. So that was something I learned that I did not know before. Very interesting stuff. Somebody else at the Q&A also asked Elizabeth about how Superman and Lois features Lois Lane as the mom of teenagers, kind of the first live action version to do so. And so a fan asked her about that, and this is what she had to say.
How was it trying to be the first Lois who had teenage kids? Who were your influences in helping you with that?
Well, it's funny. When I had a baby, so it's not like I had I have no experience being a mom of a teenager. I just remember being a teenager and what a pain I was. And also, the actors, Jordan Elsass and Alex Garfin, Jordan did the first 2 seasons of the show. They were teenagers, and so they could be teenagers, And so sometimes they made it really easy for me and Tyler to, kind of be annoyed with them and snap at them, because they'd be like, and Alex is kind of like this, God is really bright, but his head's in the clouds, and you're like, Alex, we're rolling. I don't know why we've never done a blooper reel, but there's a scene that Alex went to the editing suite this season from season 4 that I'm doing with Tyler, and I don't think this is that much of a spoiler, but basically, Alex plays Jordan, and Jonathan's gotten himself into trouble, and Alex skips into the scene and goes, Papa, your other son has gotten himself into a bit of a quandary. And so part of why he was confused is that I was in my warming coat because it was really cold, but I was off camera. And you can wear your warming coat if it's clean of me, and I'm talking to Tyler. It was Tyler's close up, but Alex came into frame, and all you see is Tyler go, "We're rolling," and then you see Alex's face just turn with fear. He goes, "But Bitsy has her warming coat on," and we both, Tyler and I, at the same time go, "Yes, because I'm off camera." I think it was a huge blessing being able to play Lois as a mom, because the amount of depth and vulnerability you get to play when there are children involved is way different. When your kids' lives are at stake, it's just different. And so I felt really grateful because I felt like I got to play a more vulnerable, and also on the contrary side, a stronger Lois, who was like, nothing is going to happen to my children, no matter how big of a pain in the butt they're being.
The big takeaway I took from that was that they call them warming coats. I did not know that. I've seen actors in those coats before.
The big coats.
Yeah, but I did not know that they called them warming coats. So that was very interesting. Something that was also very something I would have asked Elizabeth Tulloch if I had the chance during a Q&A. I was going to ask her something about this, but somebody beat me to it. So Bitsy discussed the Lois Lane breast cancer storyline from season 3 of Superman and Lois. So that's a bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen season 3. But Lois Lane does go through treatment for breast cancer. And so this is Elizabeth explaining how she found out about that story and what they tried to achieve with it.
I was at a Comic-Con in Wales when the Brent Fletcher and Todd Helbing, the showrunners, called and pitched me the cancer storyline. And I was scared at first because I thought, this is a superhero show and that's pretty serious. And it wasn't just serious, but the kind of breast cancer they talked about giving me, which is called inflammatory breast cancer, is like the most aggressive kind, because it's undetectable before stage 3, which is when it's metastasized. And so it's really aggressive and really deadly. And, I said, okay, well, you gotta think about it. And then I said, I called back and I said, listen, I know it's a CW show, and there's a lot of pretty people on the CW, but I want to shave my head. If we're doing this, I want to shave my head. I'm going to go for it. I do not want to do this pretty blah, blah, blah. And they said, they're never going to let you do that. And I said, all right, well, I want to really depict weakening that would happen and everything. And so with the hair anyway, what we decided to do was throw in a ton of extensions at the beginning of season 3, and as Lois started chemo, start pulling the extensions out, and then barely washing my hair and a lot of the hats. And I don't think it was explained well enough in my opinion, but she wears a cold cap. So the reason Lois didn't lose all of her hair is that it's a sort of newer technology, but you can do a cold cap on your head to minimize hair loss if you're doing chemotherapy. So you'll see that in some of the scenes. But I talked to many breast cancer survivors. I probably did talk to too many, because then I was calling the showrunners every other day being like, well, it's not really like that, according to Tiffany from Washington, who I talked to. But that was really crucial, and I learned so much about it. But just speaking of Tiffany from Washington, she was diagnosed when she was 30. She had 3 kids. She was breastfeeding her 5-month-old, and she basically just squeezed her boob to see if it was going to be a big milk day for her baby, and she felt a bump, and she had breast cancer, and she would be driving from, I think, Bellingham to Seattle in the back, and she at some point was so weak she was crawling up the stairs to put her kids to bed, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. And they were like, yeah, but you're still Lois Lane. And so we kind of had to find a happy medium where you could tell that Lois was weakened and couldn't do as much as normally, but also where she's got that fighting spirit. And but yeah, I appreciate that.
With that level of commitment for research, that level of commitment for research and reaching out, did you then receive responses from people who are going through this?
I mean, even today, just in the first autograph signing session, it's amazing how worried we all kind of were about doing the storyline, and then how much it really touched people. Probably everyone in this room either has been affected by it themselves, knows somebody does, has a friend of a friend who has. My grandfather died of cancer. And it is so prevalent, and one of the things that I was just telling someone in the line is that they're discovering that women are getting diagnosed with breast cancer younger and younger, and it used to always be that you get a mammogram when you're 40, and now I think they're going to start advising starting to get mammograms at 35. Because of say I spoke to 11 women, breast cancer survivors, 3 of them were diagnosed under 30 with breast cancer, and just happened to kind of find a lump, and that's a lot. That's a quarter of the women I spoke to, and that's pretty young. And so I'm glad that they're going to change the advisory on that.
Personally, I really appreciated that she mentioned that, because I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 33. So that was pretty young even then. So I was glad to hear her talk about that. So they did a fantastic job on Superman and Lois season 3 with that storyline. I cried every episode, but it was very, very good, well handled. It's very clear that people who are writing the show knew what they were talking about and had some of those experiences. So she did such a good job representing that. So I was really glad to hear her talk about that. Another thing that I was glad to hear her talk about, and I found it comforting to learn that Elizabeth Tulloch was just as confused about how Superman and Lois fit in, or perhaps didn't fit into the Arrowverse. She was very confused about that as well. So here is her trying to talk about that during the Q&A.
We were not a part of their universe, I think was what sort of was decided. We were kind of on a different Earth, I guess. Something like that. Then I got confused because I'm forgetting the actor's name. David Ramsey had a brief appearance in one of the episodes, and he was playing a character from the other one. But our show just was sort of different tonally. Also, we shot differently. We shot wide format, and I think also because we started during COVID, at some point the decision was made. They're kind of doing their own thing. And so John Cryer I adore. I think he's so smart, he's so fun to work with. But when you see Michael Cudlitz do Lex Luthor, it is terrifying. And he is so talented. He was nominated for, I think he was on Southland, he was nominated for Critics' Choice Award, he was on The Walking Dead. He directed one of the episodes this season. He is so good in this role. And I would have loved working with John Cryer too, but I feel like David Rappaport and Lindsay Baldessari, who are casting directors, really hit it out of the ballpark with our cast.
I will say the Lex Luthor who is on Superman and Lois, very good. Very good. So even if it isn't John Cryer, that Lex Luthor is very good. And
even if it's not our Ducky Lex Luthor.
Even if it is not Ducky Lex Luthor.
I love that even she was confused though. She's like, wait, we're not in this?
Wait, why is he here? Why is Diggle here?
What's going on?
Because I think we were also confused about David Ramsey on it was all of it is very confusing. Speaking of interacting with other people from different universes, Bitsy was also asked about Tom Welling and some of the other Arrowverse crossovers. So this was her response to that.
What was it like working with Tom Welling in Kent Farm, and what was it like seeing Brandon and Tyler duke it out in Crisis?
I don't think I was there when Brandon and Tyler duked it out in Crisis. Was I? I was. That was, right. That was a crazy scene. That was crazy. But Tom Welling is enormous. Like, he's just huge. And I worked with him briefly. Really nice guy. But I didn't have a ton of stuff with him. He's just bigger than, listen, it's Hollywood. Almost everyone lies about their height on IMDb. If an actor, and if it says they're 6 feet tall, they're not. They're 5'10". And then if it's an actress who's tall, because I have a couple tall actresses friends who are 5'10", and it'll say 5'8". So everyone's trying to be in this like happy medium, but he's a huge dude. And then the crossovers were really fun to shoot, just because, especially in Crisis, because Tyler and I did all 5 of those. You're basically just with all the leads from all the series. So it was, Grant and Melissa and Ruby and Brandon and I had that scene. And I was just saying to Brandon, I'm like, we should offer photos together too, because it must have been Crisis or Elseworlds. It must have been Crisis where we have the scene together, and it's Lois and Brandon, and he's got the kind of black in the seal. And but he was really sweet, and I think he looks an awful lot like Christopher Reeve, to be honest. It was chaos, because what they would do is like every character, if you had a scene with 7 of the leads on the shows, it's like everybody has to have at least one line. But they were fun. And then what happened with us is that we started during COVID, and so I think both that and then kind of our creator Todd Helbing sort of wanted us to be a little separate from the other universes, and so we ended up, Superman and Lois never did a crossover with any of the other shows. I think it was briefly talked about doing it with Batwoman, and then with COVID, it was just, things were so locked down. We weren't even supposed to hang out with each other. We would do little pods. Like, Tyler and I hung out a lot because we were obviously shooting together a lot, but there was an episode where I was shooting a lot with Lily Parks, who plays John Henry Irons. Then, that week or two, I'd say, well, you and I are acting together, so we can hang out this week. But shooting during COVID was difficult, for a lot of reasons.
It was cool to hear her speak on the COVID situation, because it was a different way of going about trying to make a TV show during those times. So that was interesting to hear that inside scoop on that. The last clip we'll play from Elizabeth Tulloch, she talked about the work ethic that she has developed and values a good work ethic. And Superman and Lois, her time on that show has helped her really appreciate that. And so this is kind of an interesting little also behind the scenes sort of look into how actors have to be present for scenes and how they have, when they're supposed to show up and what the expectations are for them. So this was interesting to hear her talk about.
Now that Superman and Lois has ended, what have you learned most about yourself from the whole experience?
I would say just the level of professionalism and leadership you have to bring when you are a title character on a show is really important, because I've heard of a lot of TV shows where, number 1, number 2 on the cast sheet are difficult, and then it really trickles down and it makes it a tough experience for everyone on the show and the crew. And Tyler and I got lucky because he and I both work the same way, which is, I don't know how much you guys know about TV, but we have stand-ins while they're lighting a scene, and they're called second team. And then the actors are called first team. And a lot of the time once the scene is lit, they say, okay, we're ready for first team. And you will see a lot of actors just like tweeting or on Instagram or whatever, and they'll just kind of mosey over to set whenever they want. And Tyler and I were so fast getting to our marks that we were too fast, and they'd still be lighting. And they're like, well, wait, get out of here. And we're like, well, you guys called first team. And they're like, we didn't expect you guys to just come right away. So we finally said, listen, we are not those kinds of actors. When you call first team, have the set be ready, because my job too, especially as a mom, especially as a lead character on a show who works so much, was to get everyone out of there on time, if not early, so they could see their families and loved ones. Because I go days without seeing my daughter. I'm not complaining. I'm, obviously grateful for the role, but I'd get home and she'd be asleep, and then she'd be gone and at school by the time I woke up. So I really felt like I was always trying to keep things moving. And so that was probably the biggest thing I learned, because on Grimm, and I also learned a lot from David Gentoli, who's the lead on Grimm, who's my husband, because he really had that level of professionalism on Grimm, and he's always early. First of all, I'm not early to work, but I'm never late. He goes to work early, and I'm like, hi, I get it. But he just wants to make sure that he's exactly where he needs to be when they need him. And to this day, because he did a TV show called A Million Little Things, and he'd always make sure he was 15 minutes early if they needed him to shave that day or whatever. And so I would say that's professionally anyway, that was one of the big takeaways.
I know one actress who is not on Instagram in between those things, Katie McGrath.
That's true.
Unless she has a secret Instagram account that we don't know.
A secret Instagram, it would probably just be all like books. I feel like she'd be on like Bookstagram, like how to make a great cozy tea.
Yeah, so that was interesting to hear that take on what it's like to be, an actor who has professionalism. So a good panel. We have the full panel on the DCTV podcast YouTube channel. So if you would like to check that out, we'll also link it in the audio podcast show notes of this episode. The other celebrity Q&A panel that I went to was Brandon Routh. He took questions from fans, and even though I was sitting in the back for both of these panels, back of the tent, and it was loud and noisy, and I was around a bunch of kids who weren't paying attention. So I apologize for the poor video and audio quality. So even though I was sitting in the back for this one, I did enjoy checking this panel out and hearing what Brandon had to say. And the first thing we'll learn about is his Superman suits and which one he preferred to wear.
Which suit was more comfortable to wear, your Superman Returns shirt or your Kingdom Come suit?
The Kingdom Come suit was definitely much more comfortable to wear. And the technology of the suit design has come a long way. There's so many superheroes and superhero movies since Superman Returns, so I got the benefit of that the second time around. And also, I think it was also a beautiful suit as well. And I got to be more involved in the design to a degree. I was more included, which was awesome also.
It was a good suit, so I think that's a fair answer from him. Brandon also talked about the Superman versus Lex Luthor fight sequence in Superman Returns and some of the stunts that he did in there. And so even though Superman Returns came out almost 20 years now, coming up, I guess it's 18 years now. But he talked about some of those stunts and how he did some of those himself.
Aside from falling down the stairs, which was my amazing stunt double, Mike Massa, Lex punches him, and getting thrown into the shards, picked up and thrown by Ian, pretty much did everything else in that scene. So that's me getting dragged through the water, that's me getting stuck in the water and hit with a foam rock. And Ian Tom, I can't remember his last name, the biggest guy, pulling me around and just we did that 6 or 7 times. And the water was cold also. But that was epic, and I didn't have to do a lot of acting. It was mostly surviving, just trying to stay strong as Superman while all this is happening, getting, affected by kryptonite. So it was rough. So it's appropriate to feel like maybe he was at risk for his life, because maybe, just a little bit, it felt like that for me.
Might have been a little too real for Brandon Routh during those fight sequences. He really risked it all for the role. He talked about Superman Returns quite a bit because, of course, that was when he played Superman for the most time. He did play Superman in the Arrowverse, but He played Superman for a good bit with Superman Returns. So a fan asked him about getting to interact with Noel Neal and Jack Larson from the Adventures of Superman TV show with George Reeves, who both made cameos in Superman Returns.
Noel Neal, absolutely lovely. Every time I saw her, what a lovely presence in honoring Lois, and just so sweet and welcoming to the whole family, Superman family. She was probably the best person that did that and held, everyone together as being one of, or the OG, as it were. And for Jack, to have a great time with Jack, Sam and I had a great time in the bar shooting that scene. Speaking to him about some of his memories, working, and just lovely to have both of them in the movie and to honor Superman and still get to keep them in the lore of Superman, because they've been so incredibly important to Superman in the story.
Inevitably, when Superman Returns comes up, there are a lot of hot takes about the movie, which some I think are really fair. So one of them does come up here in this Q&A panel about the scene in Superman Returns when Superman looks in on Lois's family time with Richard and Jason, who she has started a family with. And so this is Brandon's response to that hot take that a lot of people have, and I think it's a pretty good answer.
I've thought about that because people brought it up, I don't know, after the movie. And I was like, did I miss this? Where was I that I didn't see this? And I took it, I never had a problem with it. Because he's been gone. He left. And he doesn't stay and watch them go into the bedroom. That would be creepy. He watches a tender family moment and learns a great deal of information that the audience needs to know. So from the storyline perspective, helpful. And it's an absolutely wonderful scene. One of the best scenes and well-acted scenes of the movie by James Marsden and Kate. But every time I see that thing where he asks the question, like, are you still in love with Superman? And her response, in his face, man, fantastic. That's why he's still working so much right now. Because he's a great actor. So I actually kind of really like that scene. And listen, Superman's not God. So, I technically, that is illegal. For him to be doing that. But, I mean, if you just think about it, he can kind of do it from anywhere. If he can hear people in space, he can pick you out anyway and look through your walls. So that's maybe why I didn't bump on it, because I can do that anytime. He was just choosing it to do then, specifically, to learn about a person that he was in love with. So that's how I feel about it.
That's a good point. If you get mad at Superman for sort of spying in on Lois's family time with Richard and Jason, he could have done that from space. He didn't have to do that from right outside their house.
That is true. That is true. He was like, I want to be like more up close and personal with my thing. But he can spy anytime.
Yeah, no, he could spy in and be creepy anywhere and anytime.
He's like, listen, Superman's kind of a creep. Let's get that as a baseline.
So that was a good perspective I had not thought of before. Well, in addition to talking about Superman Returns, Brandon was asked about playing Superman again for the Arrowverse's take on Crisis on Infinite Earths.
The hardest part was, getting in shape again for it. But thankfully, I was definitely in better shape to do it that time than I was the first time. And had a great trainer up in Vancouver where we filmed it. And I also knew a lot more things about health and nutrition, so it was much easier. And as far as the character differences, it's still the same character from Superman Returns. He's just had these epic, terrible emotional experiences in his life of loss. And I have lived nearly 20 years at that point of life since I made Superman. I guess it was 15 years. and had a son who's here with us today, Leo. And that really imparted a lot of more depth and presence, I think, and authenticity for the character, because I had just lived more life, and I felt, even though I'm not wise enough yet, I was wiser than I was at the beginning, the first time. So, and had loss in my own way that I could tap into more to bring a more gravitas, more groundedness to Clark and Superman that we see in the crossover.
And speaking of the Crisis crossover, a fan asked Brandon about playing a Superman who fights another Superman played by Tyler Hoechlin.
I don't like being the main Superman. Shocker. So it was challenging to find emotionally the right space to like have that anger and volatility when there wasn't a lot of, I just was turned evil by Lex. There's not really a storyline for that, so finding some kind of truth, and I was challenging. But I like how it turned out, and Tyler's awesome. He was a fantastic Superman and Clark, and it was great to share the scene with him and just do all that stuff and be on camera with another Superman was pretty wild, another Clark. And then all flying stuff was actually fun, which is not something I could say in the first go around. But we did everything in that movie, or in that TV, in that whole sequence, I think in one day, I did, which was just astounding. It was like 10 hours of wire work because they created this whole new rig and way of doing it. So it was fun and cool to work with Tyler.
One of the best moments of the Brandon Routh Q&A panel was that one of the fans who asked him a question about how he flew as Superman was a young kid who had a familiar name.
I was at the Superman Museum yesterday, and I was in the area where there was this old Superman movie with Christopher Reeve. There was a device that they used for the flying sequences that had Christopher Reeve held up to have him fly. They did the flying sequences with you? Did they have you do the same thing, or was it computer animation?
Great question. What was your name, sir?
Clark.
Clark? Oh, yeah, Clark. That sounds familiar. Do you mean a body pan? It was like, yeah, the big arm white, and then he's attached to this thing that was moving around like that? Yeah, thank goodness no. They thought they were going to do that, and I did body cast for that, which was the hardest part of playing Superman was the body casts that I had to do. Like 2 full body casts. Anyway, I'm not going to go with that. It was terrible. And now they have computers that do all those things. The flying part was the hardest part of the movie, for sure, the months and months and months of that. But I'm glad that we did it the way we did it, all wires but not a body pan, because when you're strapped into that thing, it was terrible. So my heart always goes out, it's gone out to Chris for him being part of the process.
So in addition to asking Brandon Routh questions about his time as Superman, someone asked him about his aspiration and inspiration for wanting to write fantasy stories. Did you know about this, Morgan?
I did not know about this.
That he wanted to be a fantasy writer?
Oh,
this is new information for me. So I'll let Brandon Routh explain what that aspiration was.
When I was a youth, and still today, I just don't have time for it. I love reading fantasy. So I started with, actually, it was Patricia C. Reed, I think it was in middle school, Talking to Dragons or something series. But then Terry Brooks was the first real big one in all of his series, and then Terry Goodkind, and then Robert Jordan, and David Farland also has an interesting series. And I kind of, I haven't read much since 98, 99, since I came out here really, or came out to Los Angeles and started the acting days, but I wanted to be a fantasy novelist.
That's good information to know.
That's pretty cool. Robert Jordan, by the way, is the author of the Wheel of Time series,
Oh,
which I'm very familiar with, having read all of it. Not to brag or anything, but it took a long time.
so
So
if you ever got to chat with Brandon Routh,
I would have something. Now I know what I could if I ever bump into Brandon Routh, which is definitely going to happen at some point. Now I know. Like, don't talk about the Superman stuff. Played out. I'm gonna be like, give me your hottest take on Wheel of Time. Go. Which books did you think were the slump? Like, I got topics now.
I want to know those answers. Well, I think some of his interest in fantasy probably stems from the things that he was watching when he grew up. This was also something that I did not know. He talked about being a Jim Henson fan.
What?
So I think maybe this sort of informs some of his interest in the fantasy genre.
Obviously, we love Superman, so for you, what would be the equivalent as if you would want to, you would want to drown Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, you're talking about movies? Just anything, just really, Jim Henson, yeah. What is it, Flight of the Navigator?
How about Dark Crystal?
That's what I said. Yeah, Dark Crystal. That's the first one I said. Never-ending Story. So stuff like that. Yeah, that's dark stuff. I mean, dark. It was the 80s.
Yeah, those are all classics. He has some pretty good taste in some of those movies from the 80s and the Jim Henson library. Flight of the Navigator, not Jim Henson, but also very good. It's a classic 80s movie. So I think I would have stuff that I could
Yeah,
talk
there we
about.
go. We can bring in the Hanson, we can bring in the Wheel of Time. We got so many topics. Like, oh, okay, yeah, of course, we can talk to him about Superman. Yeah, that'd be so fun. But Jim Henson. Let's talk 80s puppet movies.
the darker Jim Henson puppet movies for sure. What is your hot take on David Bowie and his time with the Muppets? That is something to talk to him about. But the most important question that came up during the Brandon Routh Q&A panel, and what we'll wrap up our little recap of the Q&A. You can watch the full Q&A for everything that he talked about. He gave a really good answer about fatherhood and things that really emotionally connected with him in terms of him being a father and playing Superman and being Superman. But the most important thing that he talked about was his time making the 9 Lives and 9 Kittens Christmas movies, which we love here.
Masterpieces
That we love here on Supergirl Radio. So this was him talking, and I'm so glad that someone else brought it up.
I'm glad that it got brought up, because that's the kind of question that I personally would ask, knowing that the crowd really cares about it. So
one other person there,
one other brave
soldier
soldier out there.
So here is him talking about the Kitten universe. I guess we could call it the Brandon Routh Kitten universe.
I was excited to reteam with Kimberly Sosted, who's fantastic, and my co-star in that movie, Marilee. And I was like, if she's in, then I'm in. So it's great. I love that. I love how much that movie has meant to people, and how often they watch it. And it fills them with love and Christmas spirit, and that's fantastic. So I was excited to reteam and be a part of it, having known already how much people appreciate the first one. It made the second one, a little bit more special in that way, because I knew we weren't just making a movie; we were making a movie that I knew people were going to watch and enjoy. So yeah, it's special.
One more additional thing we could talk to Brandon Routh about would be his thoughts on killing Queenie.
That's what I was going to say. I would have been like a follow-up question. First off, how dare you kill Queenie? Why, Queenie? I like how he was like at the end. He was like, "It's not just a movie," and in my head, I said, "It's a cinematic universe."
So I'm glad he's getting a lot of love for those. Christmas cat
Listen,
movies.
quality films. Quality films.
The first one's pretty good. The second one's a thing.
The second one's also there.
Where they sort of miscount all the kittens.
That would be my real question. I would get up and I would say, "I'm sorry." So I counted the cats. They slowly like hook me out like on those like old like Looney Tunes cartoons with like a giant shepherd's hook, and I'm like, "Wait, no! In this one scene, they weren't enough."
Well, that concludes my time in Metropolis. I was only there for a short amount of time, but I did quite a bit.
You packed in a lot in that one day that you were there.
Yes, so I got to see and do a lot of things. I did go down to the Artist Alley. I'll talk for the Supergirl Radio Patreon supporters. I'll talk about somebody I ran into down there, which was unexpected but very fun. So I'll talk about that.
Mystery.
I also kind of saw Kristen Crook from a distance. I didn't go talk to her. For some reason, they put her in the Artist Alley away from like the other celebrity tables, which
That's
was
strange.
Weird. But I've had problems before where I wanted to go talk to a celebrity without paying for something just to say hello, and the celebrity, I'm not going to name names, but the famous person said, "You have to pay in order to talk to me," and I said, "Okay."
Okay.
So
I was just saying hi.
So I have tried to implement that the etiquette, I guess, for going up to people at those things. So since I was not going to get a picture or an autograph from Kristen Crook, I didn't go talk to her, but I did smile at her from across the room, and she was looking very lovely and very friendly. I don't know why they put her away from Elizabeth and Brandon, and
That's very strange.
But
put our girl with all the rest of them. How dare you?
Hopefully she enjoyed her time with the artist down there. I'm sure they enjoyed having
Kristen
her
in a corner. Secrets and lies.
I'm sure they enjoyed having her there. The artist probably.
I'm sure they did. Did she have like a Q&A panel?
She did not on Saturday.
Oh.
She may have another day that I wasn't there, but on Saturday I did not get a Q&A panel. If she had a Q&A panel, I would have asked her about season 6 Lana.
Oh yeah, you like, what was your favorite Lana and why was it evil Lana?
Why was it Lana Luthor from season 6?
The best version.
We should try to get Kristen Crook on the podcast.
We really should.
Just to talk about season 6 on.
Remember when you got to be bad? Girl, wasn't that the best?
But yeah, so Kristen Crook was also there. So lots going on, but these were just my experiences, and so I bring them to share with everyone else. So hopefully everyone enjoyed hanging out with Superman Celebration for this episode.
I always appreciate these celebration recaps because it makes me feel like I was there, even though I have never been there.
Well, one time we're gonna get you there.
It's gonna happen one day.
I don't know if it's gonna take Melissa Benoist going there. I
mean, I'm getting my ticket right now. That's
but we'll find a way to go. Maybe for the 100 years of Superman in what is it? 14 years?
In many years, yeah.
In 14 years.
So still doing this podcast, obviously.
I'm going to be a very old lady by then. But yes, so eventually maybe we can get you there. It's kind of hard. Metropolis is hard to get to. So.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's not really like a central location.
Yeah, you have to drive to get there.
I gotta really work at it. So
but hopefully you enjoyed
well, I feel like I was there now, so
good. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. If you'd like to contact us, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on X and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. And Supergirl Radio is part of the DCTV Podcast and Multiverse of Color Network, so go check those out. We also go live and wired on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on the DCTV Podcast YouTube channel and the Supergirl Radio Facebook page if you want to join us there. DCTV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of a new DC or Superman-related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, magnets, tote bags, pins, phone cases, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
And since we talked about Superman Celebration for this episode, we have some Superman designs in the DCTV Podcast TeePublic store that we would like to suggest.
And since we talked about Kristen Crook being there at Superman Celebration this year, we have some Smallville designs. If you want to go grab a hat or a t-shirt or a sticker from some Smallville design that you like, or we have a Krypton lifting team shirt that has Superman weightlifting. He probably would never need to do that because he just has super strength, but maybe Superman goes to the gym every now and then. I believe that's also a shirt that Henry Cavill had in an Instagram video.
Oh, okay. That's really funny, though.
Yeah. So Henry Cavill, at least, is on the Krypton lifting team. So if you are interested in that, you can check that out in the TeePublic store. Well, if this is where we would like to thank our Supergirl Radio supporters, our Legion of Super sponsors, for supporting the Supergirl Radio Patreon. These people are Michael, Anne Marie, Yvonne, Nicola, Abby, Miriam, Nicole, Brian, Ethan, Danny, Majuba, Zachary, Annie, and Rachel. And if you would like to become a Legion of Super sponsor, you can go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. If you would like to catch up with me, you can follow me on a couple of social media platforms. I'm on the Vero True Social platform at Derby Kid there. On Instagram, I'm at the Derby Kid, and on YouTube, you can find me at youtube.com/duckmilkprod. I also have a travel blog if you want to of sorts. If you want to follow me on social media for my travel adventures, you can check us out at Oasis Broom.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic. You can also find me as a co-host on the Legendary Ladies podcast, where we have been talking about all kinds of different fun pop culture stuff, including doing a pilot pod for The Boys, talking about The Bear, and I think we're gonna dive into a little music stuff too. I think we've been talking about our long rumored happening eventually Maggie Rogers episode that keeps getting bumped by something a little bit more timely. But if you're into anything from Beyonce and Taylor Swift to Bridgerton, we're the podcast for you. So you should follow us, subscribe, and also follow us on social at The Legendary Ladies, including YouTube, where we post our live episodes.
Nice. That's a lot of variation on those topics.
We like to mix it up.
All good stuff. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And thanks for going with us to Superman Celebration 2024.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No. Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!